circular economy comes as a very important factor to create economic incentives to turn waste into wealth.
So Angel, starting off, can you tell us what is circular economy?
Circular economy is a model of economic development whereby productory means do not produce any waste or pollution for the environment. Essentially, all the elements of materials that enter the industrial sphere remain in it without leaving this closed loop. So hence comes the name circular economy, because it essentially becomes a circle of material flows within the industry, and then in the meantime the environment can regenerate. So the nature of circular economy is that it decouples the economic growth from environmental degradation. We can continue the growth of economic development on our planet, continue increasing the GDP, whilst the land and natural resources can actually recuperate. So that's the essential element of circular economy.
And why is circular economy such an important concept at present?
The importance of circular economy is manifold. To begin with, the productive capacity of our planet has already been exceeded. So we are currently consuming approximately 1.5 the amount of resources that we have on our planet, which leads to the even greater inequality between the developed and developing countries, because in developed countries some countries have 3 times as much resource production as the others, whilst in developing countries it's 0.5. So there is that element. Second part is, of course, that we have generated a lot of waste through our economic activities. There are the gigantic landfills full of rubbish. There is the toxic and medical waste that currently many countries are struggling to find out what to do with, and it also provides a lot of opportunities for mafia to transport those toxic wastes to parts of Somalia or other countries in the developing world. And there is this famous plastic soup in the Pacific Ocean that is the pile of rubbish the size of Australia, full of plastic bottles and other elements swimming around. So there is definitely a lot of economic damages from that and environmental losses. At the same time, the waste, actually, despite all these negative aspects, its biggest problem is it's idle. So we actually have not found ways to turn waste into wealth. And this is the most important element where circular economy comes in. It actually lets us use waste for productive purposes. It currently may appear to us as a bad thing, but so were rubies in India or in Burma a few centuries ago. People were just walking past rubies lying on the ground thinking, oh, it's useless shiny stones. And then the value was created and their appreciation grew with it, and hence came the worth of that. In terms of waste, of course, I don't see it as being kind of the jewelry of the future, but what we could find in waste is the economic value, and many types of waste have it. Some waste contains rare metals that are currently scarce and that are needed in production of aerospace industry or microcomputing or any other high technology sectors that use resources that are already scarce, and suppliers are paying higher and higher prices to mine those in those places where there is not enough, whilst actually there may be a lot just in the next rubbish pile next to you. Is just very often we don't even know the contents. So circular economy comes as a very important factor to create economic incentives to turn waste into wealth.
Definitely. And what is the current global outlook on the circular economy models?
The current global outlook is actually quite positive. So there's been a meeting at World Resources Forum in Davos a few months ago, where stakeholders from different sectors, from policymakers, scientists, and leaders of corporations came in, and they actually brainstormed on how we can make the circular economy model work, because none of those parties individually can achieve circular economy even at national scale, let alone at global scale. So there needs to be the commitment of the public sector to ensure that circular economy has a chance, because it provides far too many positive externalities. It creates far too many public goods, and the problem of public good in classic economics is that there is usually nobody willing to provide those unless the government intervenes. So we can clearly see why the public sector is needed, but at the same time, the scale of investments needed to transform the industry towards circular economy is in tens and even hundreds of billions of dollars. So there will definitely need to be a commitment of the private sector for that reason. So in order to ensure the private-public partnership between the state and the private stakeholders. There needs to be a communication with them, and they said that there is a big convergence of interests of the financial area and political area in terms of circular economy. As I noted, the strain on natural resources is already high, but it's only going to increase in the future. Our planet will have around 9 billion people by 2050, and along with this increase, there won't be an increase of natural resources. So there is actually a business case for circular economy in both the developed countries, due to the fact that technology and industry in those countries has advanced far enough to enable that, and also in emerging economies for the reasons of their demographic boom. They are already strained on resources, but their populations are exploding, so there will be a lot more pressures for them to be more creative and creating economic incentives for people. And the most important thing that came from the panel discussion at the World Resources Forum is that the numbers are huge. So by 2050, we will have 75% of infrastructure that will exist in 2050 has not yet been built. So in order to actually provide financial means to construct all that infrastructure to enable economic growth, we definitely will need to have a lot of engagement from the private sector. And the cumulative value that will be created from that is approximately $3.5 trillion per annum in global GDP growth that could be achieved. So that's very reassuring news for a circular economy.
Great. Well, Angel, thank you so much for coming in once again and sharing your insights with us.
Always a pleasure.
Well, that's all for myself and Angel for now, but for all the latest Dugoscopy updates and market moves, keep clicking back.